The streets of Florence were alive with soft golden lights, the murmur of distant laughter, and the scent of fresh jasmine carried by the cool night breeze. Sienna De Luca walked slowly along the cobbled paths, her fingers tracing the worn stone walls of the ancient city as if trying to hold on to a memory she had long buried. It had been 7 years since she left this place. 7 years since she had stood under these very lights, listening to the soft hum of street musicians, feeling the warmth of a hand that had once held her so tightly. But the past had a way of calling people back. The invitation to the art exhibition had arrived unexpectedly, an elegant cream-colored envelope carrying the name Alessandro Marino, a name she had spent years avoiding. And yet, the moment she saw it, her heart had stuttered, her hands had trembled, and before she knew it, she was here. A part of her wished she hadn't come, because she knew what awaited her inside the grand gallery beyond the piazza. His paintings. Their story, captured in brushstrokes and color, in the delicate details of a love that had once felt unbreakable. She hesitated at the entrance, her breath uneven. The glow of chandeliers spilled through the glass windows, illuminating the guests inside, their voices blending in a soft, cultured murmur. And then, she saw him. Standing at the far end of the room, dressed in a tailored black suit, his dark hair slightly tousled, Alessandro looked both exactly as she remembered and yet entirely different. His presence still commanded attention, but there was something heavier in the way he stood, something distant in the way he smiled at the guests around him. Sienna's heart pounded. She had come here prepared to see his work, to admire it from a distance, to pretend that she was only another visitor in a gallery filled with strangers. But she had not been prepared to see him. And as if sensing her presence, Alessandro lifted his gaze, his eyes meeting hers across the crowded room. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The years, the silence, the distance, it all faded in the space between one breath and the next. And Sienna knew. This night would change everything. Sienna's breath caught in her throat. Alessandro had seen her. Even from across the vast gallery, she could feel the weight of his gaze pressing against her skin, as if the years between them had never existed. The world around them, the laughter of guests, the clinking of wine glasses, the hum of whispered admiration for his art, all blurred into the background. Only he remained. For a fleeting second, Sienna considered turning away, disappearing into the night before the past had a chance to catch up with her. But then her gaze shifted, landing on the large canvas behind him, illuminated by golden light. And her heart stilled. It was a painting of her. The soft curve of her shoulders, the way the light fell on her hair, the unmistakable depth in her eyes, captured in each delicate brushstroke. It was not just a painting, it was a memory made permanent, a moment in time that he had refused to let go of. The room spun. She had convinced herself that leaving had been the right choice. That Alessandro, with all his fire and intensity, had deserved someone who could stay. Someone who wasn't afraid of being completely seen, loved, consumed. But standing here now, faced with undeniable proof that he had never forgotten her, she realized the truth. She had never forgotten him either. A movement from the corner of her eye pulled her attention back to the present. Alessandro had excused himself from the guests surrounding him. He was walking toward her now, his stride slow, deliberate, unshaken, as if this moment had been destined to happen. Sienna's fingers curled into the fabric of her dress, her heart pounding louder than the music playing in the background. Every step he took felt like a countdown to something inevitable. And when he finally stood before her, close enough for her to see the tiny flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough for her to remember the way his voice had once whispered her name in the stillness of the night, she knew. The past had never truly let them go. And tonight, beneath the soft glow of the chandeliers and the weight of their unspoken history, they would have to face what was left of them. The space between them was too small and yet too vast, filled with years of silence, of words that had never been spoken. Sienna stood frozen, her pulse hammering, as Alessandro stopped just a breath away from her. The gallery around them hummed with soft conversation, laughter, and the quiet admiration of his art. But none of it mattered. Not when his presence pulled her in like the tide, just as he always had. She should have spoken first. Should have acknowledged the years, the distance, the letter she had left behind the night she disappeared from Florence. But her voice remained trapped beneath the weight of everything that stood between them. And then he broke the silence. Not with words, but by turning, walking past her, and disappearing into one of the smaller exhibition rooms. A deliberate movement. A choice. Sienna's chest tightened. He wanted her to follow. For a moment, she hesitated. This was it. The moment she had been avoiding for 7 years, the confrontation she had never been strong enough to face. But she had come here for a reason. And so, with a deep breath, she stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floor as she followed him. The smaller exhibition room was quieter, more intimate, the golden lighting casting a softer glow on the paintings displayed along the walls. Alessandro stood near the far end, his back to her, hands resting in his pockets. He did not turn when she entered. But he didn't need to, because he knew she was there. Sienna's gaze flickered to the paintings surrounding them, and the air left her lungs. It was their story. Every piece in the room was a moment captured in color and shadow, a reflection of their love, their heartbreak, the pieces of them that had once fit together so perfectly. The cafe where they had spent long afternoons, her sketching while he whispered poetry in Italian. The riverbank where he had once kissed her beneath a canopy of stars, the city lights shimmering on the water like broken glass. And the last painting, the one that made her chest ache with something raw and painful. A woman, standing in the rain, her back turned, walking away. Sienna staggered. She had spent years trying to forget. But Alessandro had spent years remembering. She felt him move before she heard him. The quiet shift of his breath, the way the air between them seemed to thrum with the weight of everything they had left unfinished. And when he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, steady. "Why did you come back, Sienna?" The question wrapped around her, pulling her under. Because she knew the answer. She had always known. But saying it out loud? That would mean admitting the truth she had spent 7 years running from. Sienna's breath trembled as Alessandro's question lingered in the air. "Why did you come back?" She could have lied. Could have given him an excuse, something simple, something that would let them both walk away without reopening wounds they had spent years trying to heal. But looking at him now, at the man who had painted their love into something immortal, something permanent, she knew there was no running this time. Her gaze drifted back to the painting. The woman walking away in the rain. Her. The final moment of their story, captured forever in brushstrokes and color. She swallowed hard, her fingers curling at her sides. Because I never really left. Alessandro stilled, his dark eyes sharp and searching, as if he wasn't sure if he had heard her right. Sienna exhaled slowly, forcing herself to continue. "I tried to forget you. I told myself it was better this way. That we were too much, too intense." She let out a shaky laugh, shaking her head. "But the truth is, no matter how far I went, I was still here. In this city. In these paintings. In you." Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken emotions, with years of longing and regret. Then he moved, slowly, deliberately, closing the space between them until she could feel his warmth, smell the faint trace of oil paint and the cologne he had always worn. "You left," he said, his voice low, filled with something that was not quite anger, not quite relief, something fragile and breaking all at once. "I did," she whispered. "And it was the biggest mistake of my life." His jaw tensed, his hands clenching at his sides as if he was holding himself back. "You don't get to say that now, Sienna." Her chest ached. "I know." Another pause. Another heartbeat of hesitation. Then, his hand lifted, his fingers brushing against her cheek, hesitant, testing the space between them. Sienna leaned into the touch. It was barely anything. A whisper of contact, but it was everything. Alessandro's breath shuddered. I never stopped painting you. She closed her eyes for a second, swallowing the lump in her throat. I never stopped loving you. The words broke something inside him. And in that moment, with the city lights flickering beyond the windows, with the echoes of their past surrounding them in paintings and memories, Alessandro did the only thing left to do. He closed the distance. His lips found hers, not in desperation, not in anger, but in something deeper. Something that had waited 7 years to be found again. And this time, neither of them would let go.